I'm Insomniac, and this is Starbucks Kenya African Blend. Okay, today we are looking at a medium roast from Starbucks. This is Kenya African Blend, and there's a little clip on it because I have sampled this coffee already. But let's give you a look at the bag. This is certainly a colorful, interesting looking bag. I'll give you a close-up here on screen so you can see what it looks like. There you go. Pretty cool looking. I mean, for me, I don't really care much about the packaging. It's about how good the product is inside, but I always like to give you a show of what's going on the bag in case you haven't seen it. So there's your front and back, and then on the side you have some tips for grind size and brewing and storing, so that's nice. Then on the other side we have some stuff about committed to 100% ethical coffee sourcing in a partnership with Conservation International. I don't really trust anything Starbucks says at this point. They're so corporate that I just don't know what to believe anymore. Who knows if this is even Kenyan coffee? I'm not really sure. But that's not for me to judge. The aromas and flavors are, though. Before we see what this coffee smells like, let me give you a close-up on camera of the beans. This way you can see what this coffee looks like. Alright, well, let's see what this smells like. Well, the first thing I notice is that it's really, really sweet. The aroma out of the bag is really sweet. I actually get an aroma that reminds me of mixed berries. Sweet mixed berries. Then I get a nutty aroma, but it actually reminds me of pecan. That's pretty cool. And there's a cookie-like, kind of almost doughy aroma, but it's mixed so hard with the sweetness that the only thing it can remind me of is sugar cookies. So it smells like mixed berries, pecans, and sugar cookies. Delicious. Kind of want to eat the beans. Well, let's brew some of this up and see what it smells and tastes like in liquid form. Alright, so we have some of this Kenya brewed up. Let's see what it smells like now that it's brewed. It smells like warm Linzer tarts. Like the cookie part, the filling, the powdered sugar and all. Linzer tarts. I get another aroma that reminds me of like a nice, warm, fresh cherry pie. And actually the stronger part of that, you get a little bit of the fruity kind of cherry thing, which is where cherry pie came from. But you actually have a nice kind of warm pie crust aroma that comes out of the coffee here. And you have a little bit of an earthy, kind of dark chocolate aroma that kind of finishes off the nice aromas that I'm getting. You do have a little bit of sweetness with it brewed in terms of the aroma, but it doesn't smell nearly as sweet as it did in the bag. That smelled almost candy sweet. Brewed, it's definitely a lot more subdued in terms of the sweetness. But let's get to the most important part and see what it tastes like. Well, flavor-wise, it doesn't match the aromas at all. Nothing really sweet or desserty here. The first thing that I notice is just a big earthy flavor, like big mineral-rich earth. I do get a little bit of that brown sugar that they mentioned on the bag. I didn't read the bag to you because I feel like that just wastes a lot of time with reviews, but this says well-rounded notes of tropical fruit and brown sugar. In terms of flavor, there's no tropical fruit, I can tell you that, but I do get a little bit of brown sugar. The only little bit of kind of fruit I get on the palate is really a stretch, because it's not exactly a fruit flavor and it's basically only reminding me of part of a fruit. There's a bitter flavor that almost reminds me of orange peels, and that's as close to fruity as I'm getting for the flavors. Body is excellent. Really, really, bold, big, kind of thick mouthfeel. Not necessarily in a bad way either, but really good body. The only thing I don't love about it is there is more bitterness to the finish than I think is enjoyable. It's not gross. I'm not saying that. I've had some of this coffee out of this bag, and I'm sure I'll finish this off camera. It is good enough to drink and enjoy, so don't take it that way. But definitely has more bitterness to it than I think a lot of people would actually like. Okay, so for the Starbucks Kenya African blend, if we're talking 1 to 10, it's a 7. And you're probably thinking, well, based on what you just described to the flavors, how could you give it a 7? Well, I'm basically averaging out the aromas and the flavors. First of all, like you just heard me say, the flavors weren't bad at all. They're just not as interesting and bright and sweet and awesome as the aromas were. They're not bad. The only part of the flavors that I don't really love is the little bit of bitterness. But the aromas out of the bag and brewed, for me, were basically a 10. This coffee smells incredible. But then, in my opinion, you're moderately let down by the flavors for the 100th time, not because they're bad, but because when you smell this coffee both out of the bag and brewed, you're really expecting something special, and then you drink it, and it's just not. So the aromas are like a 10, the flavors are like a 5 or a 5.5, so for me overall it's a 7. Definitely not a bad coffee, but it smells better than it tastes. If you've had this coffee, definitely leave a comment. Feel free to share your experience with everybody else, because like I say in most of these reviews, we all have different palates. I'm not saying that everybody's experience with this coffee is going to be the same. In fact, most of you probably won't have the same experience because we all have different palates. If you'd like to support this channel and see it grow, I could always use the support over at Patreon. There is a Should I Drink This Patreon now. It is the link at the top of the video description, so check that out. All right, lots more coffee reviews coming your way soon. See you next time.